Dear professor, dear colleagues, dear students, first of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Maastricht University for hosting this event, and also to the organizers for bringing us together today here in Brno. It is a pleasure to be here after more than 10 years from my first visit in Brno, and also an honor to be with you. Now, as concerns our topic today, we had in mind that in our project Equality in Ever-Integrating Europe, we have explored various dimensions of equality, including the equality of sovereign states, the evolution of sovereignty within the European Union, and the rights of European Union citizens. But in order to have a comprehensive understanding of equality of the states within the European Union, we think that we should also examine it from a generational perspective. This is why we chose to focus on intergenerational equality within the European Union for our final intervention in this project and conference. Intergenerational equality refers to the principle that all generations, past, present, and future, should have equal access to rights, resources, and opportunities. More and more international documents refer to the rights of future generations. For example, the National Strategy for the Sustainable Development of Romania 2030 discussed about the needs of the current generation without compromising the chances of future generations to meet their own needs. When we discuss about intergenerational equity, we usually have in mind environmental policies and economic justice. That is why at the beginning of this project, when we proposed the topic for the conference, we preferred the general approach referring to some perspective of reflection. But in the light of the recent developments, we should discuss more about social-political dimension, especially regarding how young people perceive political rights and their exercise in the digital age. The growing influence of artificial intelligence and social media algorithms presents new challenges to political rights and the integrity of democracy. This concern has received significant attention in the European Union in the light of the Romanian elections, for example, where algorithm-driven manipulation demonstrated the vulnerabilities in democratic process. We addressed this issue in an article proposed for the blog, for CA blog, titled Sovereignty and Algorithms, where we discuss about the risk of vote manipulation through algorithms and its implication for expressing sovereignty and voting on the future of the European Union. Placing these discussions in terms of intergenerational justice help us to find solutions for necessary reforms both at the European Union level and also at the state levels to safeguard democratic decision making for the future. So our perspective today in terms of intergenerational equity envisages the political equality in relation to digital and informational equality. Because artificial intelligence has profoundly reshaped the interaction between the citizen and the state, influencing the way information is transmitted, perceived, and used, among others in terms of political rights. Given that the democratic processes are based on the expression of citizens' will, this transformation raises fundamental questions about the ability of the democracy to function properly in a digital landscape dominated by the algorithms. The events that marked the 2024 electoral years in Romania, culminating in annulment of the elections for the office of the President of Romania, brought to public attention the use of algorithms in elections and the ways in which the will of the electorate can be manipulated. The Constitutional Court held in that ruling, among others, the distortion of the equality and opportunity for electoral competitors through the non-transparent use of digital technologies and artificial intelligence in the electoral campaign in violation of the electoral legislation and through the funding from unreported sources of the electoral campaign, including the online one. Recently, while discussing the Romanian elections with colleagues from Italy, I encountered an intriguing question. What institutions and mechanisms can prevent situations similar to those in Romania? And I think that this question is not only relevant for Romania, but for the entire European Union. Because the evolution of European Union reflects the sovereign will of its member state, and the sovereign will ultimately belongs to the people. They express this will primarily through voting. Therefore, the principles of freedom and equality in the exercise of political rights are essential for this future, never integrated European Union. So how can we prepare future generations to ensure that their expression of political will is not manipulated or distorted? I think that to determine which preventive mechanism to implement, we must first understand and recognize the risks involved. And we mentioned some of these risks, like political micro-targeting and the manipulation of public opinion, meaning that artificial intelligence is being used in electoral campaign to analyze voters' behavioral data, enabling the shaping of personalized messages aimed at influencing voters' decisions. Deepfakes and disinformation, which means a digital manipulation of a video, audio, or image using artificial intelligence or other specialized software. This kind of manipulation can distort reality, shaping highly realistic video or audio content that can be difficult to distinguish from the authentic materials. The guide developed by the National Cybersecurity Directorate identifies in this regard the following deepfake techniques used to exert influence on the electoral campaign: realistic video forgery, voice cloning and audio forgery, generating synthetic text, face swapping and transformation, behavior prediction. Artificial intelligence analyzes the online behavior to predict the response to certain messages. Another point here to analyze is algorithmic bias and fairness of elections, because artificial intelligence system can introduce algorithmic bias, a phenomenon that occurs when systematic errors in machine learning algorithms produce unfair or discriminatory results, reflecting or reinforcing the existing socioeconomic, racial, and gender biases that favor certain categories of candidates or political views. The issue was recently addressed at the 2025 judicial seminar held by the European Court of Human Rights, Protection of Human Rights in a World of Artificial Intelligence, Algorithms, and Massive Volumes of Data. There are also risks and also benefits, of course, related to the intergenerational equality, like digital divide, meaning that there is a risk that differences in digital access and skills between generations may lead to inequalities in democratic participation, and algorithmic biases, because artificial intelligence system can perpetuate or amplify existing biases related to age, which necessitates the implementation of robust safeguards. Of course, there are beneficiaries like innovation in democratic participation and increased transparency. Now, knowing the risk, we have to think to measures in terms of intergenerational equality to protect democracy. Well, one of these measures concerns raising the awareness, because taking action is crucial in this sense. A recent example is the Venice Commission's interpretive declaration on digital technologies in electoral matters. The Commission's opinion highlights the positive responsibilities of public authorities and the shared accountability of private actors, discussing about electoral integrity on the internet, obligation to build resilience among voters, to raise public awareness about the use of digital technologies in elections. The Venice Commission mentioned the obligation of the state in this regard. The state has an obligation to take effective steps to ensure a supportive environment for robust public debate, preventing and punishing infringements of the voters' freedom to form an opinion, as well as for preventing inequality in media coverage during elections. Electoral integrity on the internet should be guaranteed on the basis of the law, inter alia by specific rules against cyber attacks. A regulation aimed at removing content that could be considered distortion of freedom of speech, such as false information and hate speech, would in principle justified. Also, the Venice Commission discussed about an independent body mandated with the enforcement of this regulation in the implementation of these programs. For example, like an institution like an ombudsman for the protection of the interest of future generation. And in connection to this kind of measures, we also think that it is also very important the digital education for citizens. Also, the Venice Commission discussed about this kind of measures in the same opinion, stating that the voter education programs are also one of the main programs to be put in place. The enhancement of digital literacy is crucial in an increasing technology-driven society. Of course, all these efforts means legal and constitutional reforms, both at the European Union level and at the state level. As concerned the European level, it is important to strengthen the European Union treaties, recognizing digital integrity as a core democratic principle, requiring artificial intelligence transparency in the political process, or establishing artificial intelligence governance clauses in the Charter of Fundamental Rights. As concerned the measures at the national level, we think that it's important to have constitutional reforms concerning digital accountability laws, youth representation mechanism, or legislation against artificial intelligence-driven manipulation. Reading the constitutions of the member states, I found this interesting Article 35 in Portugal Constitution, discussing about use of the computers and some warranties in this regard. Computers shall not be used to treat data concerning philosophical or political convictions, party or trade union affiliation, etc. I have this article, which is interesting in this landscape of the constitutions of the member states of European Union. And finally, we think that it's important to have international cooperation in this regard. So we provide these examples, recent examples, meaning discussions and the seminar organized by the European Court of Human Rights concerning the protecting human rights in a world of artificial intelligence. The Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy and the Rule of Law, which is the first legally binding international treaties in this area, requiring, as concerned the democracy, requiring parties to adopt measures to ensure that artificial intelligence systems are not used to undermine democratic institutions and processes, including the principle of separation of powers, respect for judicial independence and access to justice. We have also the level of European Union, the Artificial Intelligence Act, discussing about practices, harmful and abusive practices in the field of AI. In our conclusions, we try to emphasize that in the light of the transformation brought about by artificial intelligence, the democratic system must be re-examined, not only in terms of their institutional arrangements, but also regarding their temporal scope. This acceleration of technological development, coupled with the climate crisis, digital transition, called for a reconceptualization of institutions and responsibilities, extending beyond the immediacy of electoral cycles toward the ethical obligation we hold toward future generation. This is where the concept of international equality becomes essential, as it challenges the time-bound nature of democratic participation and emphasizes the long-term impacts of political and technological decisions. In the face of disinformation and deepfakes and the manipulation of the electorate by platforms, we must ask ourselves, are we truly making our own decision, or is it possible to determine who really decides? Additionally, how can we convince people that their votes are not a reflection of their free will? The Romanian example is particularly relevant, that some citizens feel that the annulment of the election contradicts democracy, believing their votes were stolen or ignored by the court of politicians. And in this context of digital challenges, it is vital to ensure that the will of the people remain authentic and free from influence of external non-state factors. So we think that an interdisciplinary strategy is essential to outspace malicious actors, safeguard the integrity of democratic elections, foster digital competence, and reinforce national security. This could include the establishment of the future generation ombudsperson, as I discussed, impact assessment focus on long-term consequences, or constitutional provisions that embed sustainability and equity as guiding principle. This task is quite challenging, especially considering that, in addition to the problems already identified, the European Union will need to address issues related to states' equality. For instance, the asymmetry of technological influence is a significant factor. The states with strong technological industries may have an advantage over smaller or less developed countries when it comes to managing and regulating digital platforms. Furthermore, differences in legislation, we discussed before, create vulnerabilities, as regulations around the algorithms and the protection of the electoral process vary from one state to another. So we think that it is essential that the implementation of this regulation is to be accompanied by concrete measures to bridge the digital divide between states and generation to ensure fair democratic participation, because only through this holistic approach we can ensure that the benefits of digital transformation and artificial intelligence are fairly distributed among all member states and generations present and future. Thank you so much.